Back up. Okay, terrific. So we are back in Senate institutions. And we are discussing S69 related to age appropriate design code. And our next witness is Lizzie Irwin, Public Affairs Coordinator, Center for Humane Technology. Lizzie, thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you for letting me join remotely. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So if you could just let us know what you think we need to know and the what your organization does and what it sees. And we will have a stop at 1:45 for the Attorney General, but we'll proceed with you, Lizzie, if you haven't finished, and then also with Bailey.
Okay, sounds good. I think I'm going to be under their 10-minute allotment. So, and I'll be sure to send my testimony after this.
Thank you.
So good afternoon, Chair Harrison and members of the committee. My name is Lizzie Irwin. I'm the Public Affairs Coordinator for the Center for Humane Technology, a nonprofit dedicated to ensuring that technology products are built safely and in a way that aligns with humanity's best interests. And I'm here today to testify in support of Bill S69, the Age Appropriate Design Code. A little bit about the center. We may be best known for our work on the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which popularized today's understanding of the attention economy and demonstrated to the public how the incentives that govern technological development dictate the types of products and their impacts that we use every day. The Social Dilemma came out in 2020 when I was still in college, and it became abundantly clear that my generation, Gen Z, was in a crisis of loneliness that was only exacerbated by the very platforms we use to stay connected with peers, teachers, and other important figures in our lives. Even when we wanted to disconnect and get offline, there was a constant phantom sense of needing to reach for our devices to check and see if we got one more notification. At the time, we couldn't quite explain why we felt this constant pull and suck sensation by platforms, but the Social Dilemma helped put into words what most of us were feeling. It illuminated why people, especially young people, felt like they couldn't resist scrolling or swiping. And it's because companies are intentionally designing their products to capitalize on our cognitive deficits and exploit our very human tendencies. And as later internal reports from these companies have shown, this is especially true in young users. So no matter how many life hacks my fellow Gen Zers and I can try to use on our own to mitigate our scrolling or resist picking up our devices because of a new ding, it is a very uphill battle against companies who aggressively fund projects that capitalize on young people's attentions over protecting them. These are billion-dollar companies with the capital and presence in society to operate as they please as long as it dries up revenue, but it doesn't have to be this way. Last year, the center was proud to support the Age-Appropriate Design Code here in Vermont and watch it garner massive support amongst parents, educators, faith leaders, lawmakers, and yes, kids themselves. And I'm heartened to see your community taking up this matter again because it's clear that the issue has not and will not resolve itself on its own. Anchored by two core pillars of safety by design and privacy by default, the Age-Appropriate Design Code creates a framework for protecting young users by establishing a minimum duty of care for the platform operators to design products with the end user in mind. Other industries have the same duty of care when it comes to their consumers, so why does it feel like the tech industry is now the only one above this standard? The design practices outlined in the bill that support companies upholding their duty of care include prohibiting the collection, sale, share, and retention of any personal data of minors that isn't strictly necessary, limiting how these businesses can use minors' data for content recommendation, prohibiting push notifications between midnight and 6 a.m., turning off direct messaging with adult users by default, disabling push notifications by default, and providing prominent tools for account deletions when necessary. By tweaking design practices upfront, companies can make a massive difference in preventing harm upstream. I believe compelling these design changes will meaningfully impact the incentive structure of the business practices of those operating online, one where safety considerations impact the bottom line, not raw engagement metrics. The Age-Appropriate Design Code presented to this committee is based on a model bill already in effect in the UK and Ireland. Since its passage and implementation, platforms have actually changed their products to reflect local directives, and it hasn't broken the internet. These platforms are making business decisions based on the consideration of risks posed by their data and design practices, but they seem to only do so when lawmakers compel them to do so. The results are promising. Some examples of concrete changes that are already improving kids' online experiences abroad include: 1, Snapchat turning off all accounts belonging to consumers to private by default for those under age 18. TikTok and Meta implementing restrictions on direct messaging, preventing unknown adults from reaching out to kids on their platforms. TikTok turning off notifications after 10 p.m. for 16 and 17-year-olds and after 9 p.m. for 13 to 15-year-olds. YouTube prohibiting by default or severely resisting comments on material posted by users under 18. And Instagram allowing the consumer to hide comments from a specific user without that user being aware. Kids no longer receive unsolicited outreach from strangers and are proactively protected by these limits. They can truly rest at night without the constant influx of pings going to their device. And this helps directly by breaking down the recursive feedback loop, fighting for young people's attention, and helps them develop healthier relationships with the technology where they do not feel dependent or constantly craving to pick up their device and scroll. So, over the course of the session, when you hear opposition to this bill, pointing fingers at anyone but themselves as being responsible for their product design, please keep these tangible changes in mind. If it has been done there, it can be done here. And better product design is possible, where the onus should be placed on those who know their products best. That's a basic fact of consumer safety and corporate responsibility we all know to be true. Last year, I was proud to see how far this bill progressed in Vermont, leading the way for other states. And now the sentiment around the country has shifted in favor of design-based solutions in response to one of the most pressing issues affecting my generation and those younger than me. The result of poor product design is felt deeply, and each of you can likely relate to the impacts you see in young people as a result. Let this year be the year you choose a different, safer path, and let this year be the year you pass the age-appropriate design code in Vermont. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for reminding us. But last year it was approved unanimously by the Senate. So questions, comments?
I do have one. Ms. Irwin, hi. I'm just looking at your website and you have some resources. You have a youth toolkit and a take control toolkit. I don't expect you to know exactly what's in all of those right now. But I guess a lot of what we've been hearing is, this is on the parents, this is on the kids, presumably on teachers to teach digital civics too. But why isn't that enough? Why do we have to have the design, the code design limitations as well?
Yeah, I think one thing that's important about the design bill is that it's future thinking, and our media literacy is only downstream of what we know the harms to be true today. So while we can watch out for things that might be triggering or things that might be like completely outright and wrong for people to be interacting with, it would be better and safer from the beginning if people could be prevented or guided in such a way that you don't have to take on these literacy initiatives and sort of like own stopgap measures and add that as like an accessory to a guide to how to use the products. I think of like, there's some tips across the toolkits that are like turning your screens to grayscale to reduce the like buzz to your the literal sensations to your brain. Wouldn't it be great if we had something that was already off the bat not triggering those same sensations in your brain and rather like making it something that we have to deal with on our own? And like I said, it's like those are the harms we know now. There could be a new way to capitalize on our attention and our cognitive deficits that we don't know about until it poses a risk to young people and vulnerable people that will then just have to be reactive again by teaching them these like new initiatives.
Thank you.
Good question. Anyone else? So I don't know. So can you just speak to the amount of impact this has on like the numbers of kids who are impacted by this? Is it half of the kids, quarter of the kids? Is it, just general impacts?
Oh, like of what we saw, of what we'd seen abroad?
Yeah, the abroad, that's great in terms of fixing things. But my understanding is it's pretty pervasive, but I don't have a definition of pervasive yet. So
yeah, I don't have exact metrics, but I candidly started using a cell phone pretty young. Like that was my parents' choice, as well as like signing up for social media accounts pretty young. I think at the time when I was considered pretty young, like I was probably outside the norm, but I think the norm is once you start middle or high school, you're going to be signing up for these platforms, which I would like to see a way for these platforms to still be accessible to young people in the sense that like they should have their own online spaces, but I want them to be online spaces that are safe for kids. So it is pervasive and it is the norm and it is the reality that technology is all around us and there's no way of just becoming a Luddite. But if we are all connected, there should be some bounds for the way that kids are connected.
Right. Totally agree. That's why we're here.
But I just want to mention technology. Just
Oh, that's good to know.
workers.
All right. Oh, right. That's true. And there is a group of kids who call themselves Luddites, actually. There was an
Yeah.
article about them recently. Just to support each other in limiting technology and limiting the harms of technology. Okay, well, great. Well, thank you so much. And we may have, we may contact you again just to understand more, but thanks for sending your written testimony.
Totally. Have a good one.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I think rather than Bailey, I'd rather not have you get partway through and be interrupted by Charity. So if you are okay to be there.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, so let's go offline until Charity gets here. Thank you.